spinning, and it is live. So we are talking, and I'm going to go over here to the other one and push that little video, and we will be good to go. So, where are you? Okay, it's going. Now, where's my screen? Okay, here we go. All righty, so welcome everybody. We are live from Music Row 411 tonight, and we have a special treat for you. Tonight, we're going to be talking with one of the rising stars, not in music, but in publicity and promotion. And his name is Trevor Perkins of Perkins Publicity, and he is hotter than a firecracker right now. And Trevor's worked with all kinds of folks, from YouTubers and hip hop artists and country greats, and he is getting it done. And the interesting thing about that is it usually takes somebody a long time to kind of cut their teeth and get their chops working for a lot of other people in publicity. But Trevor has an interesting story because he actually started his love affair with publicity and all things music in high school. So Trevor, can you share a little bit of that with us so people can know how special you are?
Well, thank you. You're so sweet. First off, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you guys. Yeah. So, my industry career is kind of crazy. I'm going on my 8th year within the industry. And I fell into it very accidental. It wasn't something I ever planned on doing. I was sitting at a local county fair one day, and I loved the band that was performing. I was like, I want to interview them. So I went into the music industry with trying out music journalism, not really knowing how big the industry actually is. And so I did journalism for a very long time. I started in the industry when I was 13. So
how is that possible?
Well, that's when I say when I fell into it very accidental, I fell into it very accidental. And I just went in with everything. And as most people know, as you hit a certain point in high school, it's time to start figuring out where you want to do, what you want to do, where you want to go. I knew Nashville was something that I wanted to go into, but I didn't know what the full aspect was. So I decided to, I consulted with a colleague at the time. I was like, I think I want to try doing PR. I've done journalism. It can't be that hard. And so I went into running my own PR firm. First artist I signed was a hip hop artist out of Nashville. Brand new to the hip hop realm, never worked in PR, never worked in, hip hop at all, and went full blown into that. And built my company from there. I started PR probably when I was 16. And then it's at the age of 17 is when I independently went into my own realm of doing my own PR and starting my own company.
Okay, Wonder Boy, do you have a deal with Marvel in the works?
Well, it could be. Honestly, I have so many hats, and as we get going through it, you'll find that I can't sit still very long. I'm always trying out different things in the industry, and so as we get going, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff at me.
So, what was your very first? It's incredible to me, and I grew up in New York, surrounded by some of the greatest music journalists, and I ate up all of that stuff. I couldn't get enough of it. But you're actually from Iowa, correct?
Yes. So I'm from a small town, probably about 1,000 people, and everyone knows everybody. Everyone knows where each other live, what they're doing, everything. And so to come from a small town where there's really no music influence here, kind of shocking for a lot of people.
So what was your favorite type of music growing up?
I grew up on country music. It wasn't until I was probably starting the music industry that I come into realization that I had some sort of connection within the industry. I just wasn't aware of it. My family, my parents are divorced, and my family on my dad's side is a long line of truck drivers. And I knew that's not what I wanted to do. So that was something that really set me apart from everything. But it wasn't until I started in music journalism that I actually found out that my grandpa used to be in a part of a touring band that, opened up.
Really?
Yes, that opened up for like Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings and all those great legends. And I don't think it never wrapped. I don't think wrapped my brain of what that was until I got older within everything. But ironically enough, I didn't tell my family when I started. I kept it. I shouldn't say keep it as a secret, but I just didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I was just doing it. And then I finally opened up to my dad. I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. This is what I want to do. And that's when the full support started picking up from everything.
Wow. I just, you hear kids starting lawnmower businesses, mowing people's yards and just to make some money, but, taking on somebody else's persona and their brand. Well, it wasn't a brand probably when, that's the big buzzword now, but so let's talk a little bit about the variety of clients you have, because, I think people think about publicity in large baskets, right? So you have business, and then you have famous people, and then you have music. But now our world has changed dramatically to include the digital universe. And I know you have represented some YouTubers, and I just wanted to share with our audience kind of the scope of your publicity practice and the types of different people that you represent.
Yeah, of course. So when I started, obviously, I went into hip hop, and I kind of count hip hop as its own category because hip hop PR is way different from any other PR. And people don't realize that. Hip hop is kind of a pay to play world when it comes to everything. And so it took a lot for me to learn that. But there's all sorts of different aspects of PR, there's, the specific country music niche that's in there. It wasn't until I would say probably about a year ago when I started working with a TikToker that I really didn't know that there was any other type of PR. A lot of people, PR is not something that people know what it is. I tell people my job's PR, and they're like, what is PR? What are you doing? And so it really took a lot to learn. And as I kept growing myself, and as I started attending webinars and networking, I really learned that there was such a wide variety of people. And so the clients that I typically try to stay in the niche of everything is people in the business side of everything. I've took on a couple local businesses and built their businesses, built their branding, and then built a whole press persona and published that out to the realm. And I've also worked with a lot of influencers, actors, singer-songwriters, models. So my roster is very diverse when it comes to that. I typically try to stay with someone or something. So my roster consists of musicians right now. I have a model. I have an actress on there. I have a TikTok influencer who's doing that kind of things as well. So it's just a full spectrum of what I'm working with right now.
Well, influencers are kind of a buzzword right now. So I want to ask you two things before we get into the music portion of things. But you mentioned that hip hop is a pay to play universe, and I'm not sure some of our younger creators understand what that means. So if you could sort of shed a little light on that world and how promotion is different in the urban and hip hop markets than in, say, country or Americana or, you know, being an influencer?
Yeah, of course. So hip hop is crazy in itself. But there's a lot that hip hop has become an oversaturated genre. It has become a genre that everyone can throw some beats together and believe that they're a hip hop artist. And I encourage people to chase their dreams. If hip hop's what they want to do, go for it. Like, I highly encourage that. But as I started diving into hip hop and started researching hip hop outlets and working with that kind of stuff, I found myself coming back and hitting a roadblock. They're like, well, if you want featured, you have to pay $150. If you want featured, you have to pay this. And to take that out of a budget when you're working with an artist is sometimes hard. So where I came into play and where I come like out of the box thinking was that I took a campaign with a hip hop artist and influenced it into a pop culture realm. So I focused on the pop culture side of like featuring all genres than just focusing on outlets that only specifically focus on hip hop. A lot of
And what
times,
does that look like when you say that cross pollination? Because hip hop is everywhere. It is, you know, many cross collaborations. Musically, but hip hop culture in general has affected fashion and, you know, movies and streaming, TV, and, you know, music. So if you could clarify that a little bit, I'm sure that would be helpful.
yeah, of course. So, you know, there's outlets that specifically focus on hip hop, and that's all they cover. And that's where a lot of the clarification comes in. And where I went out of the box is normally if you look at a website, you know if their whole fan base is hip hop. And that's where when I decided to kind of go in a different direction with the hip hop and put them in a different market, it wasn't as heard of, if that makes sense. When I started doing it, I started going to these outlets and they're like, hip hop artists, like, why aren't you going to a hip hop outlet? And I also think the influencer community and the music that we're hearing today also played an impact in that, because it's becoming those viral hits. It's becoming those mainstream songs that are on the radio. And so that's kind of how all that happened. So I hope I answered your question to the best of my ability.
Well, I'm gonna ask Claire to jump in here too, because what you may not know is what differentiates the Kane program at the University of Miami is that they actually have their own record label that
awesome.
is run by students, right, Claire?
Yeah.
I'm going to let you elaborate on that a little bit and sort of share the perspective from people who want to get into the business.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much. Everything you've been saying is like super inspiring, especially from someone who like is around the same age as I am, and just hearing like how you got into the industry is like super interesting. It sounds like a lot of touch and go, and just obviously they're not teaching you like specific like pay to play, like this and that with the PR stuff right now. But yeah, so a little bit about Kane Records. It's a student-run record organization on campus. I'm actually not a part of it, but I'm working with the president right now to bring a little bit of Music Row 411 onto campus, which is super exciting. It would be our first on-campus event. So that's a PR success that we're having right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you cut out for a second?
I just said that's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I guess just from a college-aged person, my demographic standpoint, a question that maybe my peers would like to know is when you're starting out in the industry, how do you start building that brand for yourself, like with your PR team, and how do you like make sure that your vision is well communicated to PR and that PR gets it out to the audience that needs to hear it?
Yeah, of course. I highly suggest networking. That's how I started. If it wasn't without the networking, I would not be where I'm at today. I focus on research. That's how I build my brand. I have a vision of what I want everything to be, but sometimes as you go into everything, your vision kind of steers. And as you start developing in those relationships, you start to realize that your vision may be different than what you originally planned. I think the biggest thing starting out was like to back it up a little bit to explain like everything real quick. So before I started my own company, I was working with another firm. A friend and I, we ran a firm, we did things. I built all those relationships, worked with those. And so when I went over and started my own firm, I was faced with kind of starting from scratch. Like the relationships that I thought I built weren't there. And so I took an approach of like, how can I harness those relationships? So I started researching and networking. I tell people in PR, you're a professional stalker. You have to learn and know what they're doing. So if their Instagram post is a dog, say something about their dog. Like you have to know what's doing that. So one of the biggest things starting out that helped me harness my brand is I devoted an hour and a half every single day that I worked, an hour and a half researching and reaching out to outlets. And it wasn't just me saying, hey, can you like research, will you consider my artist? It was me introducing myself, saying, hi, I'm Trevor Perkins. This is what I'm doing. This is who I'm working with. I love to know what you're doing to see how we can work together. And
Brilliant.
That's what started everything. You know, you can research and you can grow, and there's tools, and I will share some of those probably as we go through. But it was just a whole different ballpark. And so now this is my second or third, I lose track already, of running my own PR firm, basically starting from scratch when I left another firm. And I know that these are relationships that I can call. And I can call and be like, hey, can you do something? I remember my company used to be Long Arrow Publicity before it was Perkins Publicity. And when I rebranded to help center my image and my brand, one of my great friends at Digital Journal did an exclusive article on me, like just doing it. Didn't even have to ask. He just loved what I did and he'd done it. And so that's when I say networking is so important and researching that, because without that, like, you know, you can do PR, you can do all these courses, but you have to have the network and the relationships to actually get the clients to succeed.
And Trevor, I just have to jump in here because I have a long background in publicity and all of that as well. But you hit the nail on the head, which I think we just need to re-emphasize. The point that you made is that it is about relationships, but it's about you asking a reporter or someone who's got a beat, whether it's hip hop or it's YouTube, or, you know, what problem are they having? What are they working on? How can you deliver value to them, right? Mm-hmm. And you're not asking for something when you're first starting out. You're getting to know them, because the last thing anybody wants is someone glomming onto them going, oh, hi, I'm Trevor, or I'm Beth, and I want to tell you about my artist, and can you write an article about them? Because it doesn't work like that, right?
No, it's not. One of my biggest success recently was a Hollywood Life feature, which is great. It's a great pop culture outlet. But I stalked that journalist and had conversations with him via Instagram. I talked to him, like, you know, when he was posting about his Halloween decor, like he decorated his house with Halloween. I was like, oh my gosh, I love your Halloween, which I genuinely did. I loved all his Halloween decor, but that's how I started my relationship with him. And so it wasn't until 3 or 4 months in of us being friends and having that conversation is when I finally pitched him. And I think that's another thing too, is like, if you know you're going to be working on something, start ahead of the game. So when you're ready, you can go boom, like you're just right there and you're ready to go.
So how far in advance, when you know there's a release or a project that you want to shine a light on, how far out do you start working with your clients on that? Because people that can't afford you yet can take that particular planning tip and apply it to their own careers, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think the biggest thing, especially in the COVID world that we're in, it's changed 110%. Like since before COVID. A lot of times you could go and start pitching a release a week or two in advance. Now, as a PR perspective, we're having to pitch those releases almost a month and a half in advance. So I really think, my personal opinion, I love being a part of the project from the beginning. Whether it's 2 months before you release a song, I want to help you. I want to help get your stuff going. I want to do that. And so I would definitely suggest like being about a month or a month and a half ahead of the game, because that's what's going to get the biggest success. If you're like, let's say for instance, like you're wanting a premiere with like, let's say the Boot or Taste of Country or something like that in that market. You're wanting a high profile premiere. You're going to have to go in super far in advance, because if you don't, odds are their editorial calendar is already booked up.
So for those people in video land, they may not know, even though they read helpful information or they've taken a class. Can you shine a light on an editorial calendar as it pertains to music and give them an idea of the kinds of things they plan out to cover, so that they have an idea of timing and, what that particular journalist is looking for or known for? Because you have expertise in this, and I think people would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, no, of course. And so I think the biggest thing, the editorial calendar that I follow, and when I started, was holidays. I have, over the past couple, especially within the last 6 months, I focused on editorial that featured a lot of artists, but it was all Halloween specific. I focused on something for Thanksgiving, and I focused on something for Christmas. We focused, International Women's Month was just last month, and we focused on some editorials with some outlets that specifically focused on strong, independent women. So taking the most important days and researching like those outlets and knowing what they're going to do is super important. And I also suggest as well, don't be afraid to ask. Like if you see an outlet that you're like, hey, I think their audience will love an editorial like this, ask them. Be like, hey, I think this would be a really cool editorial. I would love to collaborate with you and maybe come up with something. Because odds are, when I was in the journalism realm, I never thought of doing editorial lists. I never thought of it. That wasn't something that was on my horizon. I was focused on sharing the artist's story, and that was all I was. But then as I started going into it, I was like, oh, I can have a top 10 songs of the month, or I can feature someone in the Halloween spectrum. So to answer your question, if you believe that there's a story there, go and see if you can get a story. Because right now, especially in the COVID world that we're living in, you are the ones developing the story, and how you present that story is what's going to sell what they want to do for you.
So do you have a hack or any best advice for someone just starting out to do their own publicity? Because, they're very young. They don't really have a big track record. What is your best suggestion of how someone like that can develop a relationship or get in touch with people at publications or blogs? Or what is the right approach to kind of establish yourself, so that then, down the line you say, oh yeah, talk to Trevor, he's my publicist?
Yeah, no, of course. So when I started NPR, I had zero connections. I came from journalism, so I knew who the PR firms were. And so what I did was I become a stalker of the PR firms. So,
we had that in the chat. Christina said stalking them.
Yeah. And so that's what I done. So I started researching PR firms. I typed in the top 10 PR firms in the nation, started researching their PR firms. As that started growing, I started doing it. The biggest tool that I've used is Instagram. Instagram. That is so important. You can go on there and you can find a firm, and then when you follow it, it's going to pop up like similar profiles. Normally, you can find 5 to 10 different firms that you had no idea existed. And that's how I still build my connection to this day, is I'm going to those firms and looking at what content they're getting and how they're getting it. I have built my company in that nature. I understand, like, I was in the industry, like, just starting out. I've obviously built where I am at today, but I built my social presence to assist with that. So obviously, like, you know, a good first step for someone starting out is stalk me, stalk what I'm doing. I'm very focused on what I'm getting. You can view the like my Facebook, my Instagram, and that has all my, like, it's kind of like a portfolio almost, and that has become more known. So stop. Are you okay, Beth?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got something in my throat.
I just wanted to make sure that you're okay.
No, I'm drinking iced tea and I inhaled it the wrong way.
Oh, that's not good.
My apologies.
No, you're good. But yeah, that's what I would do, is do the Instagram research, stalk other firms. My firm's a great way to start off with. But yeah, just like research the other firms, find other firms, go from there. I'm trying to think if there's another tool that I use.
What do you do? Like reels? Do you like stories? Now you can actually tie your commerce or your merch. You can actually sell on Instagram. What do you recommend people do when they're planning out their content calendar using a channel like Instagram? How do you mix things up or advise?
Yeah, so I tell people, I always outline, what are your strengths? Sometimes creating video content aren't people's strengths. So I'd rather you focus, like, is it early on, focus your strengths and what you can progress in. So I have one artist, you know, we just recently got her verified on TikTok.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's great. It's, you know, she only has 50 followers, but she's verified. But yeah, so it's something that we've done. And so I was pushing like TikTok so much on her, like, you need to create content, but it's not something that she necessarily knew how to do. So her strengths were focusing it on like the Instagram stories and the content. So that's where we focused her strengths. So I think the biggest thing when planning out content is you have to know your strengths. Like, obviously you can want to do a TikTok, you can want to do a Reels, but once that's published on the internet, you want to make sure that's your best quality content. And if you do not feel confident in that, then I suggest not doing it. Like, you'll adapt, you'll find your niche. So it's one of those things that you are like just building and just keep growing. And it kind of happens over time. You'll find your niche, you'll find your content that succeeds. And that's what I would suggest. Obviously, Instagram is a great tool. I use Instagram all the time. So
we have a couple. The chat is blowing up. You are sparking lots of curiosity here. Riley is asking, how do you get someone verified on social media without a huge following?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I feel like that everyone's wanting to know these verifications, and I can shed light on those. So a lot of people don't realize your verifications matter on the press that you get. So for instance, when people Google your name, what is popping up? If you don't have anything popping up in the press market, Instagram and Facebook or even TikTok isn't going to verify you. So that we were fortunate to the artist that we did submit for verification for TikTok. She was already verified on Instagram. However, her following was not on TikTok. It wasn't there in that verification because when they Googled her, they could tell that she was more of like a celebrity type thing. Like, they're like, this is a legit person. She needs to be verified. And so that's the verification, like how you get people verified. Right now, it's more, you're seeing more and more of smaller accounts popping up with verifications. It all comes down to the press. If you don't have a press presence, then they're not going to verify you.
We also have a rocker out there. Hi, Adam. Great to have you tonight. His question is that he has a radio. Oops, let me go back up here. He has a radio rock release planned for the end of the month, the 30th of April, 4 weeks out. And he's asking, is he too late? And what would you suggest he can focus on for media within a short time frame, like 4 weeks? He's already got his press release done and the materials ready to, deploy.
Yeah, so I would suggest for you Monday after Easter, let people get out of Easter out of the way. I would start researching some rock outlets. Even trying to find some firms that specifically focus on rock. I know that there's there's Earshot Media that does a lot of rock PR. There's something else. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But go to those rock PR firms. If PR is not in your budget, then stock those firms that are getting that rock coverage. Even with your song already released ahead of time or far out, send that press release in that email. Be like, hey, I'm releasing a new song. I would love for you to consider it. As still an active journalist, I still do freelancing for a couple couple outlets. I truly enjoy still receiving pitches from artists. I think it's just so personable. They're actually taking the time to get to know you, and it just makes me feel so much better that someone they're trying, they want to succeed. And so that's what I would suggest. Start with research. Start with a simple Google search of rock magazines, rock blogs, and kind of go from there. Build a list, build a database, and then when you're ready to send out that email, maybe by mid next week or next week, send it out. See what happens. Odds are, don't expect everything to come at once because you want that time for follow-up. So send it out, see what happens. Give them a week to respond. If they don't follow up, odds are it maybe went to their spam or whatever, and just kind of go from there.
We tell our folks in our better booking in our bands courses that, we sort of recommend a rule of 3. If you've emailed somebody 3 times, over a period of time and you don't get an answer, you need to stop. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that 100%. Nothing is more, even as a journalist, and that's where I implemented a lot of my practice in the PR was I knew what I wanted to see. Nothing is more annoying than receiving so many messages from an artist and the emails are so discombobulated and everything. It's odds are I'm going to hit the delete button. And so a tool that I have been using, and you guys are getting a free tool because this tool is so incredibly awesome. It's free to use. You can upgrade it, but it's called Mail Tracker. And Mail Tracker is an extension that you can put on your email, and it will track the emails. So I have it. I upgrade so people don't know I have it. And I'm able to basically see how many times they open the email, if they clicked a link, if they opened it right away, it's going to tell me.
So you're getting conversion data on that.
Yes, exactly. And it's free. So I suggest that because the 3 rules that you just pointed out, Beth, are right on point. But that helped me judge on when to send an email. So I know if they've clicked the email 5 or 4 times, they're probably considering it. If they clicked it once, then they're probably not considering it and maybe just need another nudge. But sometimes it does go to spam. So if they haven't opened it, then you have that leeway of saying, hey, sending this again, just wanted to follow up with you. So it's kind of a tool for you to track when to send follow-ups and when to not.
Claire, you had some questions about things in this nature. Do you want to jump back in?
Yeah, so I think what you were saying about just refraining from spamming people, I know in all of the Instagram blog comments Complex and Genius and all that, all you see in the comments are just artists spamming, and it's so obnoxious, and I know no one wants to see that. So I think you were about to touch on this earlier, but you did mention that Instagram was the primary way that you reached out to entities, companies, and blogs and things of that nature. But what's the most professional and respectable way to reach out to these people, and any other platforms you might recommend to get their attention?
Yeah, so I would suggest being as personal as possible. You know, I started with not necessarily messaging them right away. They would post a picture on their Instagram of their kid or of their dog, and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so great! Like that's so cute." And started posting it that way. And then I went in with that message and be like, "Hey, I'm an artist. Just getting started out. I'm doing all these things. I just want to introduce myself to you. I love the content that you're putting out. Just want to introduce myself." Odds are they're gonna like respond. They're gonna be like, "This girl has been commenting on my things, doing that." So I suggest like starting off with, don't be going right in with the DM, because nothing is just gonna drive people crazy. Go in, engage with their content, know what they're talking about, because so many times, even as like a journalist, like people would be like, "Oh my gosh, I seen you over here." I'm like, "No, you didn't. You don't even follow this person. You're just full of crap." Like that's full of crap. And so
Pamela is a term I heard today.
Exactly. That is right on point. And so that's what I would suggest, is just being as personable, and you will know when the right time, when the door is open. And I trust that, and I give everyone that courage. If you've followed this guy for a month and you've been engaging with his content, then that's when I would reach out.
Also,
go ahead.
To that point, you should thank somebody immediately if they have noticed you or run a little blurb or included you in something they're writing.
Exactly. That's the thing as well. And that's something that I encourage all my artists. And this is like advice for artists or even publicists that are wanting to start off. Thank yous go a long way. And I tell everybody, like, one of the requirements to be on my roster is, I don't care how big this blog is. I don't care how small this person is. I don't care what their status is in the industry. At the end of the day, if they take the time to feature you, I expect to see a thank you. And so that's the biggest thing. So thank them personally. I have so much content that I can't thank everybody on my Instagram and be like, "Thank you so much for feature," but I have my company that does it. And so that's what outlets love, and that's what harnesses the relationship. If you see that they wrote a piece, not necessarily on you, but on someone that you're super passionate about, tell them that you enjoyed that piece. Say like, "I read your piece on, so and so, and I loved the story. I loved the thing. I'm such a fan. I've been a fan of them forever." 9 times out of 10, they're going to take the time to acknowledge that, and they're going to remember that.
What are some things not to do?
Don't be a Pamela, like you said. That's one thing not to do. Also, don't. That's a good question. There's always things not to do, but you do them until you. I think the biggest thing not to do. This is more of a not to think option. So many times, just starting off, there was times where I was like, "I'm not ready for Billboard. I'm not ready for Rolling Stone. I'm not ready to work with these people." Yes, you are ready for it. You are 100% ready for it. And that took me a while. I was like, why? They're not going to take the time and day to like hear from me. So it's more of a like, don't think that you can't do it, because you can do it. This industry, especially in PR, and this is probably most real I'm going to get in this whole thing. PR is a tricky industry. It's tricky. There's days, and I'm sure Beth, with you being in PR, there's days that I'm like, what the heck am I doing? PR is not for me. You have to have the shoulders, and I believe everyone has the shoulders. If you truly love helping these artists, you can handle it. Just be able to hold. You get no's all the time. Don't let that defeat you. Just keep going. Just keep doing what you can do, because you're going to get it. So that would be my biggest thing. Do not think that you are not ready, because you are ready. You can
believe in yourself.
Exactly.
To that point, you know, the media does love, with the big names, to point out people's, you know, snafus or mistakes that they've made, you know, the TMZs of the world. What do you recommend for people that are out on the road? They might have had too much to drink after a show, and maybe, you know, things got a little dicey with some other people. How should someone, if they make a mistake, and somebody else notices it, or they take a video of you on their phone, which now we have to be aware that the eye is everywhere, right? With our phones. What do you recommend people do to correct a mistake if something like that should happen, given that that is usually not going to happen? But, you know, things happen. People are tired. They say things, you know?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because if you would have asked me like 3 months ago what to do, I would have said, I have no idea. But I went through a situation with one of my artists. There was a photo that was dug up somehow and twisted and turned into a different direction, in direction of what that photo was intentionally for. And it was bad. The artist called me the night after her gig, bawling, because she was receiving threats, and her followers, she was losing followers. People were just picking it up, and it was just this whole ordeal. So that's when we went into damage control mode to find out where the source of the problem is. So we went into the situation of like not necessarily knowing what was going to happen, but knew that we had to address the situation and figure it out. So I think the biggest thing is, as soon as something comes out, they're gonna keep checking back on you to see if you've made a statement. Until you are collectively ready to make a statement, stay silent. As much as it may kill you, and as much as it may just keep blowing up, stay silent until you're officially ready. From that situation, we were doing damage control. We were dealing with a bunch of different legal sides of everything. And we were silent for a week, like an entire week. We turned off comments on her Instagram. We just kind of went like gone.
You're in crisis control mode.
Exactly. We went gone. You know, we just released a new song that was ironically enough about just being yourself and being who you are. And we had to put a pause on that whole side of everything to focus on that. 9 times out of 10,
Morgan Wallen was had the number one record in the country, and made some, you know, concerning comments, and he got shut down immediately. Mm-hmm. But he didn't say anything until he got himself together, to your point.
Exactly.
And then I think people believed his apology was indeed sincere.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is so many artists go into, oh, a crisis happened, I'm going to tweet about it. I'm going to tweet back. I'm going to clap back at those haters. I'm going to do this. I'm going to act right away. No, do not. Just let it sit. If they're blowing up your phone, and that was the thing that we were dealing with. We were dealing with a bunch of nasty threats. And so to resolve that situation, we just turned off where they couldn't. You know, we hid things. We just basically went where no one could find anything until the situation was resolved. You know, then it was about 2 weeks later, we started slowly opening things back up. We started posting more, and we started slow. So if anyone does go through a crisis, don't go back to your normal program, you know, stuff. Take the time, ease back into it, because depending on the situation, I would say probably 8 times out of 10, people are going to forget about it and they are going to move on. and you just got to give it time.
So along those lines, what if somebody gets a bad review?
So bad reviews are just bad reviews. Out of my entire industry career, I've only had one artist ever get a bad review. And it wasn't even a horrible review. It was like a 2.5 out of 5 stars or whatever. And it wasn't necessarily like negative. It was just not, yeah, it was negative. It wasn't positive by any means. But you just roll on. You just move on, because at the end of the day, now in the current culture, if they really want to take the time to feature you, they're gonna say something nice. A lot of people, especially because their people are so selective, they're not gonna really take the time to necessarily give you a bad review, unless you're more in the the top notches, like Chris Young and Cardi B and all those. They are going to give you bad reviews because that's what's going to get people talking. But as you're just starting off, if you have a bad review, don't let that discourage you. If anything, let that motivate you to improve things. Maybe take some notes. So bad reviews used to be a thing, but like I said, out of all my career in PR, I've only had one artist ever get a bad review.
People are loving what you're saying. The chat really is so lively over here. Do you have any recommendations for our folks about how to get in touch or find the right blogs for them, for their music? Because I feel like that's somebody who can't afford a publicist, which can be, anywhere from $1,200 to $5,000 a month, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of money to do PR, but finding that niche is super important. But to go back to your thing, I think finding artists who are similar to you is what's important. If you're striving to be a country music star, look and see where some of these rising independent artists are being featured at. And when I say rising artists, I'm talking artists who are just recently signed to like record labels, like Priscilla Block, for instance. Andrew Jankos, like artists like that. Look to see where they're getting featured, because that's what you want your goals to be. They all started out somewhere. They could have been 2 months ago exactly in your shoes. And so knowing where they're being featured is super important. So my suggestion for you, for anyone, is to find your similar artist, find where they're being featured at, and then go from there.
So Rona is asking, when are you ready for a publicist? And she says a lot of artists think they are, but they're really not. So do you have a barometer? I don't want to speak for you, but I mean, it is different with every person. But, if you all of a sudden went viral on TikTok and are blowing up, but you don't have a big track record, is that a time to maybe get someone to help you manage that celebrity? Or, what are your tips for that?
Yeah, I think more and less, I think it's more of what you're always ready for a team of some sort. It's about finding the company that is fitted for you. So many times artists go in, they invest, all this money on PR. A PR firm has track record of getting their artists on great things. But if you're not ready to be on those things, then it's going to be hard for them to do their job. You're going to leave the situation being upset because you spent money and you lost your money because they couldn't do anything, because in reality, you weren't ready. And so I think the biggest thing, this is what I've implemented to help artists who are wanting that step. I have focused on, especially when I'm working with a new artist, if I know and I can tell that they're just starting off and it may be kind of a struggle to kind of like start things, I'm like, hey, I'm happy to try to get you some things, like get you some PR. Nothing is ever guaranteed in PR, but let me help you develop your brand. It may take me a couple releases, but we'll get you to that point where you're ready. I think so many artists live in a world of looking to see what their friends are doing and looking to see who this is, and oh, I'm up to this level, but in reality you're not. And so it all comes down to finding the company that fits for you. If you can't find the company that's fit for you, then I suggest doing it yourself and developing yourself first before you hire someone on. But if you truly do want to hire someone on, find the company that is fitted for you.
What about consistency?
Consistency is key, is what I tell everybody. A lot of firms have implemented, when I'm working with an artist, you have to be consistent. You can't fall off. If you're going to invest the $12,000 in the PR, 2 months from now, you don't want to be nobody. You want to keep that investment there. And so I always say, be ahead of the game. So for instance, like if you, let's say you have a song, you just put it out. Most people want to sit on that song for a while and they want that song to grow. No, go and start doing your next thing. Get in the studio, get photo shoots done, get this done. Let the person that you hire do that for you. Let them help you. And I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of times when artists are ready for PR is when they can't manage it themselves. When they're trying to do that step and they're trying to go in the studio and they're trying to do photo shoots. That's when an artist really starts seeking PR. But that's what I would suggest is consistency is key. Always be ahead of the game and be one step ahead. It doesn't matter if you're going to release the song 2 months from now. The day that song hits the markets, I want you in the studio next week.
So, Claire, you're about to ask a question. I have a rando question after you.
So I was just going to say, in your opinion, what would be the time frame in which you can tell that your PR efforts are or aren't working, and then you should launch another campaign or move on to something else?
Yeah. So in the PR market right now, I will just say, if you have to be, it comes all about to being ahead of the game. If you're into the outlet ahead of the timeline, if they're interested in working with you, they're gonna create that space for you. But it all comes down to what can you create a story with. And so if there is a campaign that I would say is lagging, it's kind of lost its momentum, and you're like, I need something else. Well, think outside of the box. I mean, we're doing that with one of our artists. He just released his sophomore song. Wasn't doing greatest on streaming. It's now just picking up. But what we're going to do is going to change the whole playing game for him. We're sending his debut song to country radio. And so that's where it comes into play. And so I think the biggest thing is how can you get people talking is where that comes into play. And it all comes down to, at the beginning, we were talking about editorial calendars and things like that of different holidays. Is your song from however long ago, could that fit into this niche? Could that fit? And so I think it comes down to, just to recap, because that was kind of all over the place, knowing your calendar, knowing the audience of what you want to do, being present into where everything is. You're going to know when a song is dying down, but what can you do to bring that back up? Can you do an acoustics version? Can you do this? And if something's dying down, maybe it's time for you to put out something new.
So we have a question in the chat from Bobby. He's a composer and he would like your input on a strategy that might work for a composer and producer, someone who is not an artist. Yeah. And, you see this in sound design and you see it in a lot of things, scoring for films or, advertising. What do you recommend to the person that is creating music, but they are not the artist or the brand?
Yeah, well, it all comes down, and you're probably going to get sick of me here at saying this. but create a story. If you are a producer, reach any, like, let's say you're a country music producer, you have no desire to sing or whatever, but you composer, writer, go to outlets that fit your niche, that have artists that you would work with. Be like, hey, I'm a producer, I'm looking to tell my story. I'm a composer, I'm wanting to tell my story. This is what I want to do. You know, as a producer, sometimes you're skilled in different areas. You're skilled of, you know, a guitar player or a piano player. There are outlets that specifically focus on those kind of things. Like, there are outlets that only focus on featuring people who are in guitar, doing guitar things. And so that's kind of an exclusive thing. If you're wanting to push yourself as a brand, as a producer, reach out and start telling your story. And when I say reach out, start reaching out to like business outlets. We did a feature for an all-female women collective, musician collective in Nashville that featured all genres. But we debuted that project and that everything with an exclusive Forbes feature. Forbes is a business side. It's not really, it's becoming more and more seen in the music industry, but Forbes' core is entrepreneurship and the business side. We talked about the business structure of bringing these females together and creating this organization. And so I think the biggest thing is like just finding where you would fit in, finding your hobbies, your niches, everything, and going from there, and just kind of building that.
So people may not know that there are aggregators for media outlets like Cision and some other things, but those are pretty expensive, and you really need to have a firm like yours where you have multiple publicists working on many projects to make that a justifiable expense. But do you have any favorite places to recommend folks to, you know, go? Are there databases or professional associations that someone might join or investigate to find those, you know, the listings of people and sort of get an idea for where they might post their story?
So there's 2 Facebook groups that I suggest joining, and that's where I got my start into everything. There's a Facebook group called Music Industry. It's a career networking group. A lot of it's based in Los Angeles, but that's a lot of where I built my databases. A lot of them, I would go in there and people would post like looking for outlets to feature my new song. I would go and find out who's, you know, doing that and researching that. Nashville Young Entertainment Professionals is a great tool as well. Another great tool, and this is more of a networking aspect, because there are things, and I'll get into that here in a minute, but the networking is what really built my contact and my database, because I don't have Cision. I don't have it. I think it's ridiculous how much they charge. I like, holy crap. And so I build everything by networking. Clubhouse is a new tool that obviously that's where we connected and everything. That's a great place to start building your database. Another tool that I use, it's called Rocket Reach. There is a way to get a free option, and so here I'm going to give you like a tidbit. They have a.
It's great. You can look up anybody,
exactly,
their email, their phone number.
Yeah, exactly. And they have like a certain, like, you can only search like 5 or 6 for the month, but I found out that you can download the Google Chrome extension and have that as an extension, and it kind of bypasses it. So you can still research. And
this is why I love you, Trevor. You are just like the, you know, you've got that big tool belt on at Home Depot, and you've got all the drills and the hammers and the saws and the screwdrivers.
Yeah. Well, I try to do that, and I try to keep, you know, with the different tools. It took a lot. I mean, I built my database from scratch, and so it's a lot of piecing the puzzle together.
Well, it's, you know, the one thing we stress over and over and over and over again, I know I sound like a broken record, is hard work and persistence win the day. And that's what I'm hearing you say, because you started, being from Iowa, and you saw something you wanted to do and you went after it, and you didn't let anybody dissuade you from that. Or, there can be a lot of bullying or non-inclusion in something that's as tightly knit as publicity. You got the big kingpins, and sometimes those people don't want to let new people in. So I think what I'm hearing you also say is at the root of all things is authenticity.
Exactly. I'm one of those people that I didn't hide behind closed doors. People knew who I was. But I was very leery at the beginning to let people know how old I was. I was so afraid that I was going to be judged because of how old I was. And so now, as I've started and as I've developed my brand and as I'm starting to tell the story more and more, I've developed that. We strive in the industry to not burn bridges and to be friends with everybody. As fortunate as this sounds, you will burn bridges, but those bridges will be burned because they feel threatened by you. That's the biggest thing, and that was the biggest thing I had to wrap my head around was people people that I thought I looked up to, wouldn't give me the time and day. Well, now, because where I'm at now, they're wanting to give me the time and day. And so hard work and persistency always pays off, but being true to yourself also pays off.
And you never know when you're gonna, there's a saying too, be nice to everybody, because you're going to see the same people who are going up. You're going to see them coming down, and everything has a time, everything has a season. And I think to your point, in music too, there are a lot of mean girls, people that are threatened by, oh, they're going to take my place, or they're going to get the article that should be about me. And the bottom line is you have to have a hook, just like in a great song. You have to have a hook, something that is fresh and interesting. And, you can look at people and emulate them, but then we say, find something you can twist a little bit to make it yours,
Exactly. And, you're always going to feel, and I still struggle with this to this day. I get so frustrated because I have done so much that there's times where I see, for instance, like another firm get something that I was like, well, I could have got. Like, I have an artist like that. But it all comes down to you being who you are, and you are going to be told no. And I think that it makes your skin thicker. I think, honestly, it makes everything.
I'm a reptile.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be told no, but I think that just makes you succeed further. I think back to an instance where I was working with an artist that I'm so passionate about, and we didn't get an editorial that we were wanting. And we went in and we were planning on getting this editorial, and we didn't get it. Well, what did that do? Yes, I was upset and I was frustrated, but I also turned that frustration into magic. And so by that Monday, we had every press outlet knocking on our door. So I think that you're strong, and you just got to keep going with it, because you are going to compare yourself to other people. You are going to get pissed off because someone got this and you could have got that, but it's just the nature of the industry. There's room for everybody to grow and to flourish, and you'll plant your seed. Sometimes it takes longer for people to grow, but you just got to keep adding water to it, and you'll get there. It takes time.
it's a long game, and it's not for the weak of heart. You know, we always say Nashville's a 10-year town. All those people that seem to be blowing up have been doing it for a long time. They bubbled up to the surface. And, you know, I heard Scott Borchetta on a call a few weeks ago talk about how the pandemic has, one effect it's had on aspiring artists, aspiring people, is that, you know, you have all your big marquee artists that are already out there and they're releasing things. Well, they have a whole another slew of people that they were getting ready to bring up to the big leagues that were sort of like, you know, waiting on the runway to take off. And because of the time and not touring and, you know, the cycle of things, that he said, you know, you got to wait your turn. If you want the big people to pay attention to you, go out and do your own thing, build up whatever live performance, or get your music recorded and get it out there, because it's going to be a while.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it may seem, a lot of people are like, well, you're far to be in the industry of where you want to be, but I've also been in it for almost 7 to 8 years prior. I put in the time and the dedication, and it doesn't just happen overnight for people. And I think that's a perception so many times is like, you know, people go to college, they go off to college, they focus on PR, they want to do this, or even artists, they, you know, go off and do their thing, but they're only in it for, you know, a year, and they're expecting them to be ready to be featured on Billboard. No, it takes time. And that's the thing too, is time, you'll get there. Just keep doing it, keep pushing, and you will get there. I promise you. If it wasn't for me starting as young as I was, I just graduated high school last year. And so if I were to go into
that's not possible, Trevor.
Unfortunately, I wish I could say it feels longer than that because of the pandemic, because school was shut down earlier. But yes, I did graduate last year. But I look back and I'm like, the many sleepless nights that I had, the many nights that I had a 12-hour school day because I was involved with everything. I was the president of the student council, for God's sakes. And so I was involved in every aspect of my high school career. And if I didn't start when I did, I would not probably be speaking right now. Like, I would not be where I'm at. I was fortunate to have that time and put in that work to get to where I want to be now.
And now you have a podcast too, right? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So I have been in and out of the podcast realm for a while. And then most recently started back into it with a great friend of mine named Gracie Carroll. And we started a podcast. The biggest thing in the industry, I have been a huge advocate for females. I would much rather listen to a female artist than a male. It's just who I am as a person. If you can't tell, I have Kelsey Ballerini on my back wall. Like, I have her there. And it was something that I wanted to voice and I wanted to share. So her and I launched our podcast in about August. It's called Girl Most Likely Podcast. And we feature just powerful females who are dominating.
I want to be on your podcast.
We're getting ready. We're going to be starting new things. We're going to be getting going. She's a full-time musician. I'm a full-time publicist. And so we're trying, as the pandemic has picked up, we have been in the studio working on new episodes. And we're going to be, I have some things personally I'm launching here in the next couple months. And we'll be launching season 2 of Girl Most Likely here probably within the next 3 or 4 months.
And where can people find that?
Yeah, of course. So we're on all streaming podcast platforms. We're on Spotify. We're on Google. We're on YouTube, I believe. We're there too. And we're also on Apple Podcasts as well. So people can find us everywhere. We're working on being added to like iHeartRadio and things like that, but it takes time. So.
You just got a really nice shout out from a wonderful composer and songwriter, Rona Goodman. And she said, Trevor, kudos to you for being a successful young, where'd you go? A successful young leader and leading your generation on what can be done with hard work, focus, and kindness and drive.
That is so sweet. That word honestly means so much to me, because today I was in an instance where I wanted to bite someone's head off, but I had to just go back and be like, be kind, Trevor. You can be kind. And that's the truth. Be kind and just do you. You're the boss of you. You can do it. And I think that's kindness goes so far, and that's what people are going to remember you for.
So, one of the things we teach in Music Row 411 in all of our content is that in today's world, you've got to think like an entrepreneur and act like a brand, because that's the world we live in. And just like a grocery store, there are a lot of people on the shelf to choose from. And, it's a very individualized selection process. But you have to have the packaging. You have to know what you are, what you stand for. And I think that only comes with time, which is what you've said. And as you move forward, your story develops,
Yeah. I can touch a lot on that, because I focused on putting other people's brands before I put mine in the picture. I didn't know that I could even have a brand. And I think sometimes people don't realize that. But you can have a brand. You can have something that establishes you. Most recently, I very rarely have done this. The last time that I spoke on a podcast about music industry business was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I was young then, and so obviously I progressed so far. But as I'm announcing new ventures and new avenues that I'm pursuing in the industry, a big thing I'm focusing on is also telling who I am. My story is unique. Everyone's story is unique. My story just so happens to be someone who started at the age of 13. And so that is something that I am focusing on coming out and telling more, to build my brand and build who I am as a person.
So you were walking the walk and talking the talk, and you are a shining living example of what you tell your clients, teach your clients to do well.
Yeah, it's something else, that's for sure. I never thought in a million years that I would be pushing myself, my story to outlets, to podcasts and things like that. Like it's unique and it's cool.
What's your favorite success story, Trevor?
I have so many of them. That's a hard one. I think
just recently. I know you have a lot of them, but
So you guys are gonna get some tea. This is my first time, I think, officially announcing it, what I'm up to, because I'm always up to something behind the scenes.
So are we.
Yeah, I have watched artists grow. I've watched Priscilla Block take off from TikTok. I knew her when she just started. On my wall over here, I have Kane Brown's CD before he signed to an official record label. And I have that. And I think the biggest success that is happening and that we'll be announcing is I'm starting my own artist development and distribution company. So you guys are the first people hearing it.
Yay!
Yeah, thank you so much. It's called Sincerely Music Group. We are.
Oh, I love that. Sincerely Music Group.
Yep. We are on Facebook and we're on Instagram, and we'll be launching here in the next couple weeks. But yeah, we are a full service distribution company who's helping independent artists shine. And our roster of talents is unique in every aspect. And so I think that's probably my biggest success right now, because it's something that I hope to one day turn into a label. One day, it'll take time. But
you'll do it. I have no doubt.
yeah, well, thank you. And another thing that I'm
The
really,
Lipman brothers better run for the hills.
exactly, I'm here to take over. But the thing I'm really excited about is to be able to go back, tie in my journalism of finding new artists, tie in my business aspects, and potentially find the next, Kelly Clarkson, Carrie Underwood, whoever, find someone and be a part of that journey from the get-go, with my story standing out and helping the overall brand.
Well, I'd pitch you to Forbes right now after hearing all of this,
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's the goal. We're getting there. We're building that brand. But you guys are the first to hear it. It's not officially announced yet, but it will.
That's very exciting, and thank you so much. Everybody in the chat's congratulating you, and Rona asks, has anybody done a story on you? So we might have some budding publicists out here that might want to pitch you too.
Yeah. Well, no one has really done a story on me, if that makes sense, because I've hid my story for so long. And I shouldn't say hide. I've just never been as public as I am now. I will say that tomorrow I'm going to be on the upcoming season. We're recording tomorrow. I don't know when it's going to be published, but if you follow me on Instagram, you'll find it. I am going to be on the new season of the Yup podcast, the Young Entertainment Professionals podcast. So we'll be doing that. And as I officially announced sincerely, we just talked to Music Row and All Access today. As we launch that, my story will be in the forefront. So it's going to turn a lot of people's heads. So now my story is publicly coming out. So to answer the question, no, but I'm always willing to tell my story. So feel free to reach out if you have any avenue.
Claire, you have any more questions for Trevor?
I think I'm good. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Yeah, no, thank you.
We don't want to keep you too long. I know you've had a long, hard day, helping so many other people and your clients. And, what people may not realize is that your job is like being any other job in the music business. It's a 24/7, love. You have to love what you're doing and be passionate about it. But you don't clock in at a certain point and check out. I'm sure that people are getting in touch with you at all hours of the day and night, and things bubble up and exciting things happen that you have to capitalize on. So we don't want to hold you.
I've enjoyed every minute of this. This is I'm a talker, and so this is really great. And I'm leaving this, very inspired to continue to tell my story. So thank you so much.
Well, good. We will certainly, one thing we will do is we have a thing every Friday called Freebie Friday, where we send our community a content piece or suggested articles, or there might be a guide to something. And we always shout out our Live from Music Row 411 guests and tell them where they can watch the replay. So I'm sure that you will be getting all kinds of things. And you want to share your socials and all of your contact stuff so people can follow you?
Yeah, of course. So my website, I just launched my own website. It's just trevorperkins.com. You can find me. It has a link to my Instagram and my Facebook. My Instagram is just Trevor Perkins Official, and you can just type in Trevor Perkins on Facebook and I'll pop up. But yeah, that's where you can find me. You can find my companies. You can find my latest journalism pieces. Whole 9 yards. Everything about me is on that one page. So just visit trevorperkins.com and I'm right there.
Well, I think you've gained a lot of new fans tonight, Trevor, and we are so thankful and grateful for you joining us and sharing your wisdom and your experiences. And I fully expect to see you either in a Marvel episode of the Avengers or some new superhero, because you definitely have superpowers.
Well, thank you. It truly does mean a lot. We'll see. If anyone is connection to TV producers or anything, feel free to hit my line. I'm happy to maybe create a show.
Oh, I have every expectation there's going to be some kind of fabulous content thing featuring you. Maybe, I heard Jimmy Fallon might be retiring.
Who knows? Who knows? I don't know if I'll be able to juggle, doing a talk show and that, but who knows with me? I always try to find, I don't sleep, so it's there. So
and you're going to retire at 30. So.
Hopefully, let's see. But my job, I'm really passionate about what I do. So again, thank you so much, both Claire and Beth and everyone watching. I really did enjoy tonight. So thank you so much.
Oh, we loved having you, Trevor. And to everyone out in our community and those of you who are joining us on the replay, we encourage you to sign up for our newsletter at www.musicrow.com, musicrow411.com, and check out our student songwriter in residence, Sarah Bucio, at nextgensongs.com, and stay in touch and follow us on our socials, which is our name, because we've got a lot of really great stuff coming up, like Trevor. And Trevor, will you come back and give us a part 2 so you can talk about artist development and add that piece to the tool belt?
Yeah, of course. Well, let's get that scheduled. I'm happy to come back and talk about artist development because it's a new venture.
I will reach out tomorrow because we're starting to book up our live series for, this late spring and summer. And also our podcast is launching. And, you're now, whether you like it or not, you're now a member of the Music Row 411 family. So
I appreciate
everybody, we thank you so much for being with us. Be safe, wear a mask, get a shot if you can, and get all those jelly beans and Easter eggs, and maybe some of those fake eggs will have some money in it. That's what my kids always like to find. But we wish you all the best, and we'll see you next week. Okay.